You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. Good evening, this is the latest from Force 13 HQ. You can see the view out here right now. Well, let's take us away from there. Clear night here and quite cool, which is a lovely change to what we've had recently. My name's Nathan Foy and we're looking at what's going on in the West Pacific and in the Atlantic because we have two hurricane strength storms active. Maria, as we've been watching it trek through the Western Pacific for the last 5 days now that we've been doing full update coverage on the storm. There are warnings everywhere and we expect landfall will probably occur in China in around 2 hours or less at its current rate. We're also tracking Hurricane Chris. Not much of it you can see on that particular imagery there. Don't worry, we'll get some more imagery which will hopefully help us out on that one. And also to help us during our stream tonight is our team consisting in this hour of David, Gabe and Mike. Good evening to you all.
Good evening and good to be here again.
David is showing us a view from where?
B-E-I-G-A-N Baisha Harbour.
Bergen Baisha Harbour. We need to find out where exactly that is. We'll get onto that. In the meantime,
I'll have a look.
Yeah, well, there we are. So that is one view in Maria's scope right now. If you've got any comments or questions for us whilst we're on the air, I expect we're only going to be here for the hour. Who knows? If things go well, maybe it'll be longer. We'll see. Need to change that bar at the bottom as well. I don't know how that happened or how it has not changed. We'll get to that as soon as we can. It should have changed. No idea why. But just to clarify, Maria is not 130 miles an hour. It's down to 115 miles per hour, 115. And a pressure of 948 millibars. Chris is at 85 miles per hour and a pressure of 980. So just ignore that bottom part until it gets changed. I have no idea what's going on with all of that technical stuff, but it should have changed. Anyway, David, I think you wanted to say something.
It's one of 5 major islands of the Matsu Islands. M-A-T-S-U Islands.
The Matsu Islands. Here's the latest view of Maria right now. So it's a part of Taiwan, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, and it's...
Or is it?
I think it's the northern end.
Yes, it's one of those outlying... In fact, it is right in the Typhoon right now, David, and I wouldn't be surprised if you see later on that an eye may appear. that the eye may move over that. There we go. We've got the update now at the bottom of our screen. Chris is 85 miles an hour, pressure 980. Maria 115 miles an hour, 948 millibars. We're going to be running a poll shortly as well, and it might seem an obvious one, but we're running with it. And the question that we're going to be asking is, do you think the World Meteorological Organization, the WMO, should break convention and retire the name Maria worldwide? It's a question that's been on a lot of people's lips for a long time, and I wonder what people are going to say when we put that out onto the poll on our main YouTube channel page in the community tab. You'll see that appear anytime. I'm just typing it up now. But whilst I'm typing that, what are your guys' thoughts on that? It was retired in the Atlantic last year for the terrible damage that it caused in the Caribbean and in Puerto Rico. What do you think? Should the WMO break convention to avoid any more Maria misery?
I would support yes.
Well, I would. I don't know. It depends on what damage, how much damage, and fatalities it causes when it makes landfall.
Indeed. If you've got any questions that are different to that, or anything at all, do send your messages in. There's a lot of typhoon warnings in Taiwan, as you can see down the bottom of your page there. Not surprising at all that that's the case. And there's a new image that's just come in from Typhoon Maria, drawing ever closer, and if I play the loop, hopefully it will load in not too much time. It's actually moving through the Matsu Islands now. You can just about see it on the graphic there. You can see the movement of Maria has not been west-northwest, it has been due west, and it's moving ever closer towards land. As you saw at the top of the hour, those distances, it's only, what was it, 59 miles southeast of Saipu, 95 miles east-northeast of Fuzhou in China, and we expect that landfall will occur in about 2 hours, maybe less, depends on how it goes. You can just about see Taiwan down the bottom there as well, also being impacted by a significant chunk of the storm, although it has to be said the worst of the storm right now is in the northern side at the minute. And Taiwan has probably seen the worst of the storm by now, but there is still a little bit more yet before we can say that Taiwan is in the clear, and that's why obviously the typhoon warnings remain in place, and of course the rainfall warnings the rain is going to be very significant indeed. David's showing us another viewpoint from the NOAA floaters, showing you a more extended look there and how that turn has been made.
Definitely has changed. Now, what would be causing it to curve into that direction?
Well, you know, it may well just be a temporary jog, but it's happened at, you know, we're talking about putting one location in China into the projected path and another one just missing out on the worst of the eye wall as a result. It's really hit and miss along that coast there, and if you do know anyone in that area, then obviously you know, it's going to be a serious situation for all concerned, from Fuzhou northwards through to Wenzhou.
Unless it's trying to do, for some reason, an eye wall replacement cycle, and the eye just kind of jogs straight over. Oh dear. I just kind of jog straight over, then, because there's a space under the eye right there that kind of opens up. I'm not sure.
Interesting.
The Joint Typhoon Warning Center's latest advisory, the infrared satellite imagery, depicts a gradual weakening system with deep convective banding wrapping around a 30 nautical mile oblong eye. The same imagery also indicates some erosion of the deep convection over the southwest quadrant due to the initial interaction with Taiwan. A vertical wind shear 15 to 20 knots, sea surface temperature is 28 Celsius.
Yeah, and sea surface temperatures are warm enough now, but obviously that land interaction getting in the way. We're not going to see any more intensification. Landfall is so close now that, you know, it's certainly gone for Maria. Thankfully, it won't get any worse than it is at present. We'll take a little break on that, and now we'll take a look at Hurricane Chris as soon as I can get my view up here. There is Chris right now, and I've been very impressed by this storm since last night. You may remember on our coverage we well, you know, we sort of called it a hurricane when it wasn't, and then it wasn't, and it still wasn't, all the way up until just about an hour ago. They actually, that was the first time that they called it a hurricane, and I was completely baffled all day today to see that Chris had not yet become a hurricane. Here it is now, 85 miles an hour, and it's on its way, intensifying rather significant. I wouldn't say rapidly, as one or two people did on Twitter today, I saw, but significantly is the word, and I certainly wouldn't rule out major hurricane status now. Any thoughts from the team?
I'm with you, Nathan. The storm structure looks really great, and I was kind of surprised they didn't call it a hurricane last night too. It did look pretty good.
I'll support that.
Definitely.
Hold on a second.
Just see if we can get... just got a little bit of the animation there. Hopefully all of that will load and we can play it normally. But there it is, and a lot of people are going to make the comparison to Gert, aren't they? Hurricane Gert of last year, which was a Category 3, occurred in the middle of August, though. It's a month early this time. And it's not really going to be that much like Gert, because it's also going to be going towards the islands as well. Although, you know, it's not... We saw in earlier model runs and in the live stream yesterday that, you know, it was going to get awfully close to Nova Scotia and then make landfall in Newfoundland. Well, let's just take a look at the latest chart from the National Hurricane Center. This is current, and you can see now how it's not likely to affect Nova Scotia, and it's only just got Newfoundland in the center of the cone there, and the way it's trending, it may well miss both. Obviously, we can't say that for certain yet. There's no warnings or watches in effect either yet, which is quite interesting, because I would have thought, given that it's just 36 hours from its closest point to southern Nova Scotia, maybe they might have issued hurricane watches there, especially given how knee-jerk they are with warnings these days. I'm actually quite surprised that no watches have been issued yet. And then you get the UK hyper machine, which I have unfortunately been subjected to here on this side of the pond, with certain national newspapers saying that Chris is definitely coming and will batter the British Isles. Well, the National Hurricane Centre don't think so, calling for a curvature towards the north towards the end of the forecast period, and I agree with that. It's what the GFS has been hinting at for days, that any extratropical cyclones that get near the British Isles will curve away to the north before getting here. So let's just get that one out of the way. Anyone's thoughts on Chris and the forecast for Chris right now?
Well, it's going to be Nova Scotia, the coastal region, that's going to get the high seas, wind. But the bulk of the activity is going to be offshore. And Nathan, I've got the total precipitable water, and you can clearly see the movement of Chris. And I think we said yesterday that it had a bit of a southerly jolt, and it's definitely heading northeast.
as you can see quite clearly there. And there's the wind probabilities, the graphical wind probabilities. Nova Scotia is getting into the lower range of that wind probabilities now. But is that for hurricane? That's for tropical storm force winds as well. So yeah, and Newfoundland there under significant chances still, but it is still deviating away slightly. So certainly no threat to the US. Atlantic Canada still watching it very closely. I don't think the anticipated impacts will be as big as we first thought, but they could still be significant or severe, and obviously common sense has to prevail. And you know, there was one fatality earlier on in the life of Chris because of rip currents off the coast of North Carolina. I don't know if there are any more that occurred after that. I didn't hear of anything. But obviously Chris right now, you can't take it for granted at its current wind speed at 85 miles an hour. If it gets stronger than the National Hurricane Center's projection, they're saying that its maximum wind speed will get to Category 2, 100 miles an hour. And you know, it could exceed that. And if it exceeds the forecast, then the forecast has to change. So always be mindful of that as well. You can see the percentage chances on the left hand side there. They've just briefly flicked past us. And I'll just read out those latest wind probabilities. I'm not sure if they've changed at all. I think they're very similar anyway. Cape Race in Newfoundland, 60% chance of tropical storm conditions. Isle St. Pierre, 44%. Burgeo, 13%. Eddy Point, 4%. Sydney, Nova Scotia, 13%. And Sable Island, 65%. Halifax now only at 3%. And you saw at the top of the hour, Chris ticking down those miles, 888 miles from Halifax, Nova Scotia. That's the hurricane wind cone, the hurricane force wind distribution there that David's showing as well. Chances, probabilities again. And most notably as well, the National Hurricane Center predicting that it will turn extratropical before reaching Newfoundland, and will also weaken from hurricane strength to tropical storm strength. But again, you can't take this forecast for granted. If it does go stronger than expected, then those points on the cone will be raised in intensity as well. So hurricane force conditions still a distinct possibility for a lot of that coastal area of Atlantic Canada. Okay, if you've got any comments or questions for us, send your message in live and we can take a look at it and see what we think. Just go back to this view here. Well, it was all working before. We had all the other two panels, they were all working, and now they're not again. Okay, wonderful. Could Maria pull a Mekunu and stall off the coast of China is a question that we received a few moments ago. I would sincerely hope not, and none of the model indications are suggesting anything like that, but then again I suppose they weren't for Mekunu either. It's a much more guaranteed possibility, but yes, I suppose, you know, given that what goes on in this area sometimes, especially after a lot of storms in the past that have made landfall in Taiwan, they can sometimes stall on the way to China as well. It doesn't look like it's slowing down, and given how late in the day we are now, I don't think it will slow down, and certainly not enough for it to stall off the coast. It is so very close to reaching land now. We're talking about almost into the realm of minutes, about an hour and a half away maybe, that we're looking at here. Alright, I think we had some more questions as well. Are there any other areas of investigation in the Atlantic Basin? David, could you take a look at that for us? We know that we've got the remnants of Beryl, and they are still at a 50% chance of development. I just wonder if David could show us that for us. And then we'll get back to the other thing that you're showing us there.
What have we got?
Well, whilst he gets up that, I can tell you that it is a 50% chance in the next 5 days, 20% chance in the next 48 hours. The remnants of Beryl, they're producing gusty winds and areas of heavy rain over much of Hispaniola, the Turks and Caicos, and adjacent Atlantic waters. Little development is expected during the next day or so due to land interaction and unfavourable upper-level winds. However, the disturbance is expected to turn northward over the western Atlantic on Wednesday, where upper-level winds could become a little more conducive. They are sending in a plane on Wednesday afternoon as well, and I believe David can show us some of that too as soon as I can find the right button to press.
Nathan, I've got the advisory on Beryl from the
that's
NHC
basically
on the screen.
There it is. Basically, a lot of what I just read out is contained in that posting there. So we are continuing to monitor that as well, with a 50% chance in 5 days. I was just looking at any forecast models on this. I don't have them with me. David, do you have anything on that?
Oh, if you give me a minute, I'll bring it
We'll
up.
give you a minute. In the meantime, we'll just take another little look at Typhoon Maria as it moves ever closer to land. This is the full loop. Now this covers a passage of time that is about, let's see here, 1.5 hours. So it's moved that far in 1.5 hours. It's what makes me think it's going to be another 1.5 hours or maybe 2 before the landfall in China occurs. And I suppose it's probably best for us to remain here until it does that. But it is drawing very near indeed. Only a few dozen miles. And I want to maybe familiarize us all whilst we're on the air here as to those locations that are on the coast. Now, the main city in the area, I'm just going to turn this off for a minute so you can see the map. You may be able to see Fuzhou, F-U-Z-H-O-U, which is in the eye wall almost. That is a city in China. It's got a population in the urban area of 4.5 million. And that is likely to be in a significant part of the storm's eye wall. You will probably see category 1, 2, maybe even category 3 conditions at worst. Probably not category 3, but maybe category 2 conditions in that city. Further north, you've got a smaller location, although still significant as far as I can see from the map, called Ningdi. That may well be ground zero here for the landfall. If we just zoom in there again, you can see Ningdi there. It's in the inlet, that area, and in relation to the storm, it is very close to where we expect that eye to pass over. Now that city has a population of 2.8 million, so there's 2 significant population centers that could receive significant hurricane typhoon force winds of maybe even 100 miles an hour sustained, 160 kilometers per hour sustained. And then off the coast there you have a lot of small islands. Just reading off the map here, Zhuguang, Nangan, Beigan and Dongyin. A lot of those Taiwanese islands off the coast of China. David was showing one of them near the start of tonight's stream on the webcam, and it was looking very typhoon-like. And I'm not asking you to bring that back, David, but could you bring back the radar that you had on the screen a moment ago? Okay, I don't think we have David at the minute. I believe we have Orlando present.
You got me?
Oh. Well,
I got the Maria one, sorry, the
okay.
radar.
Orlando, have you been following Maria?
Yeah, I have been following it time to time again. Right now, I'm aware that it's heading into China and Taiwan, that region and that vicinity, but fortunately, it has begun to weaken. So, I just say for people that are close to the shore that if they haven't evacuated already, they should stay indoors and hopefully they're sheltered and they have all the materials that they should be equipped with. And they should be writing this thing out. Fortunately, this area's used to this type of weather, so it's more likely that the people around there are more temperate to this type of events.
And we had a question that came in a moment ago about Chris. Do we think it will be a Category 2? What do you think? National Hurricane Center thinks so?
I think
Yes.
it can. I think it can, for sure.
Who else was there in the background then?
That was me. Yes, I do think it could.
Does anyone think it could reach Category 3?
I mean, I don't know. That's a tough question because it can't be ruled out at the moment, but right now I'd stick with Category 2.
I think it could reach. I think it could possibly reach Cat 3 if it wanted to. But I mean, that's yet to be.
I agree.
It,
Go ahead.
That's Mike over there in the background as well. We've got quite a populated chat tonight. What are your thoughts on Chris?
Category 2 is certainly possible. However, Category 3 is not likely.
Okay, I think we missed the end of what he said. Mike has got a very temperamental microphone, unfortunately. We are having to deal with that. More questions that came in. Do you think that the 2 hurricanes in July might be a warning sign for an active season in the Atlantic? Now, we had Hank on 2 nights ago to talk about a similar question that was posed, and he was of the mind of, no, not really. Does everyone agree with that?
Yeah.
Repeat that, please. I'm sorry. just repeat
Whether
that
you
again.
think, basically, whether the current activity in the Atlantic is a sign of things to come. Now, I sort of, just put it into Hank's court to say, 2017 had Brett, and people said back then it wasn't a sign of things to come, and it sort of was, tenuously, but, what do you think?
I don't really think you can say that it's a sign of things to come because I mean, I know this what I'm about to talk about isn't in the Atlantic, but I mean, if you take a look at the 2010 Eastern Pacific storms, it was practically record active storms in July, and then the rest of the year was basically just a sluggish in the Eastern Pacific.
So
But
do
I
you
mean,
think that
that's-
will happen now?
I think it might, but I mean, right now we're just. I don't want to say it will or will not because then because we don't really know. We're just kind of sitting here and we're waiting to see.
Let's zoom out on Maria here. Actually,
Well,
let's zoom back in again and see if I'd actually prefer if someone could bring up the whole Himawari 8 picture of the Asian area, because we had a question. What do you think about the flooding in Japan? When will it end? They have a friend there, and I just want to, if possible, see if we can have a look at the picture in Japan on the satellite right now. Does anyone have that?
It's finding out.
Searching for it.
unfortunately, I don't have that at my disposal.
We'll get that shortly. At the minute, you're looking at imagery of Maria as it moves ever closer towards its landfall. I think, Orlando, you wanted to say something before.
Oh yeah, back to the previous question. If the activity in the Atlantic is signs of things to come, I think personally that it's probably is more so of a sign of the possibilities of more intense storms, but not the sign of a more active season as of right now. But when it comes to activity, I think at the moment anything goes.
Yeah, that's a point. I just lost my train of thought because I was looking at a load of other things as well. Will Chris make landfall at Newfoundland at hurricane intensity or tropical storm intensity? Now, the National Hurricane Center at the minute think that it's going to be extratropical and down to a tropical storm. But as I said before, if it goes stronger than expected, then you never know. We may see hurricane and tropical hurricane landfall for Newfoundland.
Yeah, that's can't be outruled as well at the moment because the Atlantic so far has proven to be unpredictable when it comes to storm development.
All right, and we've just had a question here. Orlando, please tell us, can we rule out 2005?
Oh my God! Yeah, yes.
That was an actual. Yeah, that was a question. Yeah, that was a question.
I think we can outrule 2005.
You can't. You saying we can't?
I said we can.
Oh, we can. Okay, good, good.
I don't think. Well, it's been. We're already into. Emily was already a category 5 at July the 17th, and we're already at July the 10th, and we're only on Chris right now. I don't think we're gonna see a 2000. I don't think we're gonna see a 2005 repeat or anything like that.
Be a tough
I think personally, the day that we have a 2005 type season and 2018 Atlantic hurricane season is the day that I can confirm that God has abandoned humanity.
Oh dear, oh dear.
Well, don't. Well, okay. Well, I'm curious as to if there are any very incredibly active seasons that happen that had a lot of many named storms, even just a little bit after the.
I think maybe 2012, maybe a year where there was like a mixed bag of like storms that couldn't do it and storms that actually did pretty well. So
we're looking at visible imagery now of Typhoon Maria, the latest from the Himawari 8 satellite, just as it's about to make landfall. Indeed, it has moved over, and you can see in that latest imagery one of those islands. It looks to me as though it might be, let's see here, I want to get this right. I do believe it's Dong Yin that may have just had the eye of Maria, and Beigan and Nangan looks like it could be entering the eye nowish. Just a minute on that. David, did you find anything from before? No?
No.
Well, that's okay. Do you still have that webcam? Because I'm very curious to see what's going on with that. Okay, there's
another one.
Okay, where's that?
Dong
Yin.
Harbor.
That is actually the island that just had the eye. So that must be the other side of the eye wall just coming in here. It appears to me.
Oh wow. Oh wow. Okay. Well, I'm way behind then.
And there's this one.
Please, yes. Now you can see this one. This is Beigan. Now the eye should be coming in here imminently. And look at the boats.
It's been like that for I've probably close to an hour or more. I did see on another webcam there's somebody walking out where the boats were moored. Not actually this shot, there was another one, but you can see the conditions aren't good.
If you're wondering about our poll so far, whether you think the World Meteorological Organization should break convention and retire the name Maria worldwide, 84% of you so far say yes.
Nathan, whilst we're looking at the harbour streaming cam, I'm just cited a question about should Category 6
Oh,
be
no.
added, but my response would be it would have to be a full-blown discussion at the WMO, but I wouldn't support it.
Thank you. Completely pointless.
Yeah.
Again,
Well,
this is the view in, what was it called again? Beigan, which is, I don't know about the pronunciation. Do pardon me. I've no affiliation with the language, I'm afraid. But it is one of the islands that is very close indeed to the Eye of Maria, and Maria is likely going to pass over maybe this exact location, the Eye of the Storm, very soon. I'm just trying to see whether we can get some sort of grip here on how close the storm's eye is to that particular island right now. In fact, I can tell you, looking at the map here, that this is the eye wall. The southwestern eye wall is over this area right now. David, could you just bring us back to that other webcam that you had up, because it looks to me as though that might be in the eye right now. Can't quite tell there. I think it's just skimming the edge of the eye. Those are two webcams that are currently live right now. That one is on the island of Dongyin, and that is currently at least on the edge of the eye, and it looks to me as though it is a little bit calmer there right now.
Possibility. But the other one's definitely rougher.
There we are. Bring us back to the other one. We'll keep on this one again, I think, because it's looking very interesting. This is the southwestern eye wall of Typhoon Maria. Is it at its worst? Well, probably not. The southwestern side is sort of in the middle. It looks, in fact, if we just bring up the satellite briefly, the southeastern side there, or the eastern side in general, is really breaking up something nasty there. The northeastern side is the worst part of the storm. You can see those darkening colours in the northeastern side. I can't draw anything, but the island that we just saw on the webcam is somewhere around there, where that marker is. So it is very close indeed to the Eye of Maria, which is due to make landfall in around an hour on the Chinese mainland.
Well, there we are.
I was just looking at some more information there as well. Nothing much, but this is the latest that we've got right now, and you can see an emergency vehicle there as well, driving along, hopefully I assume on the lookout for any suspicious or silly activity that people may be committing along the coastline. Obviously it's not a place to be right now. Maria is still a Category 3 typhoon with winds of 115 miles per hour and a pressure of 948 millibars according to the JTWC. According to the JMA, the pressure of the storm is 955 millibars, and interesting how they differ in the pressure there, because they actually have the same wind speed. They actually agree for once. 115 miles per hour. That is approximately, let me just get that right, 185, I think it is, kilometers per hour, something like that.
Let's sit here. I'm gonna check that really quickly.
But this is what we're looking at right now. That's Maria. We're also looking at Hurricane Chris, which is not as big a concern right now, although I have to say it's looking good. This is Hurricane Chris right now. The center of Chris's eye has a temperature of 12 degrees Celsius, which is actually pretty good. It's looking the part. I would say that this is already a Category 2.
I would definitely agree with that. Wow. That's almost. How strong of a cat dude would you say?
Only minimum right now, but I would say that that's probably 100 miles an hour.
I'd agree. I
Crazy.
agree. Very. What's even crazier is that NHC haven't been picking up on that very much.
Well, it's very interesting, isn't it? They seem to have gone quite conservative on their forecasts, I have to say.
Mm-hmm.
Especially on this storm for the time being. I was there's no word for it. I was completely baffled in how they hadn't declared it a hurricane last night, or at least early this morning. Yet, even as we entered the afternoon hours on the US East Coast, they still hadn't declared Chris to be a hurricane. Now, recon, of course, was in there as well, so you know that was obviously a feature. And let's not forget, recon comes before satellite. I don't know if recon planes are in there right now. Does anyone in here know?
I think I have a theory for why the NHC is doing this.
No, I don't know if there are any flights in there right now.
It's just a hunch, but I think the NHC has been trumped.
Well, that's exactly what I said before the beginning of tonight's event, Orlando. It's funny how we share the same ideas. Well, I do. Before, it's gone the other way. I thought before this year, at least, or at a certain point in last year, actually, the National Hurricane Center are being too knee-jerk and alarmist, and now they've flipped completely the other way. I think they're being too conservative as well.
They're making the NHC great again.
Well, you're probably going to annoy a lot of people on our stream now. Wonderful. But we'll try not to politicize anything on our stream. That would be the day that the streaming service died. We'll try not to do that. You know, politics shouldn't be in science and vice versa. Well, I don't know, actually. Maybe science should be in politics. Let's move on. Let's look back at the latest on Maria. This is...
actually... Oh, go ahead. Never mind. Go ahead.
This is the latest imagery, just to show you again. The eye is quite clearly over the island of Dongyin right now. David, do you have that webcam still?
Yes.
The other one, please. Because it looks to me as though it's in the eye. And I think it's in the eye. Look how much the seas have calmed there compared to when we first saw it. It's still quite rough, but much calmer than they were before. And you can see some spray on the right-hand side. That may well be the beginning of the other side of the eye wall, maybe. I don't know. I'm obviously just guessing here, but it's quite clear to me that it's had at least part of the eye here, and that it may well be getting... Well, of course it will get round to eventually.
So, do we think a landfall?
Well, that's quite different when we go into the technical part of what constitutes a landfall or not. That will probably be something that we try and figure out after the event, but it's certainly a direct hit, which is when the main part of the eye wall hits a land area. Certainly that. I don't like to call it a landfall unless the center of the eye actually moves over land, and we know that some of the eye has moved over the land here, but we don't know whether... I would suggest that given how small the island is, it probably didn't make a landfall, but some people and some organizations class the passage of any part of the eye as a landfall, like the Philippines, so by some definitions it was. So there we are. It's coming up to a 1:45 midnight here in the UK, 11:45 UTC, and on the US East Coast it's 6:45. Over in China right now the time is... What time is it over there? I believe it's 6:45 AM.
Yeah, it's 6:45, because last time I checked it's like the opposite. of East Coast.
Yes.
Now that begs the question now, could he dig through the earth to get to China?
Oh dear. Who knows?
Possible.
Someone says the recon. Hold on. Yeah. Someone says the recon flight has been canceled.
Really?
That's what someone says. I don't know if that's true, but I mean that's what.
Where
one of
did you
the
see that?
comments-
It was one of the YouTube
Oh.
comments that said Kevy Shader, if I'm saying that wrong.
Someone is trying very hard to help us trying to tell us that it's been canceled.
Okay, interesting.
If it is, it must be related to some sort of malfunction in that case.
Yeah.
They were certainly scheduling to go in there this afternoon. Well, this evening as
Let
it
me
now
check.
is.
When was the last
Yeah.
aircraft reconnaissance mission?
It wasn't. It was this morning, wasn't it?
No, I think there was one that happened recently.
Recently.
Yeah, quite recently.
That the
actually.
National Hurricane Center used for their update just an hour and 2 hours ago. Right?
I think so.
David, any observations that you can make from looking at this webcam image?
I think the conditions really haven't changed over the last 20 minutes. It's definitely calmer. There's no rain, so we'll see how this
Interesting.
one goes. Yes. Now, Typhoon Maria's eye is 30 nautical miles, but oblong shape. But
You can say that again.
there's no doubt that she is on, well, definitely weakening. Sea surface temperature, I think, is 28, and wave height is reducing. I'll just quickly have a look. I think it's about 20 feet. It could be lower.
Okay. So
Just
again, we have
read
two
right up.
systems that we are looking at tonight. Chris and Maria. If you have questions on any of those storms for us tonight, do send your messages in.
Wave height's 28 feet.
Cooper Sweetie would like to know our thoughts on the Pacific meridional mode crash and its impacts on tropical cyclone genesis in the eastern and central North Pacific.
Well, I have Google searched that, but I just haven't got around to studying it. But we'll take that one on notice.
Well, the eastern Pacific, I wonder if it will have a storm crash like it did in 2010, what Gabe was alluding to earlier. Sea surface temperatures haven't been looking so great, and whether it may be in for a very poor showing again in the rest of this year. What do you guys think?
I think sea surface temperature is actually going to increase when you look at the various charts for below the surface.
In
But
the
I'm
eastern
not
Pacific?
up on that. No, sorry, Atlantic.
Ah,
Atlantic. I don't think we're going to see much in the eastern Pacific.
No. If the Western Pacific and Central doesn't end up, sea surface temperatures don't end up being very warm, then we may see what we saw last year, and because last year sea surface temperatures were expected to increase going into an El Nino, but they ended up declining, and instead of having an El Nino, we had a mild La Nina, and we had an active Atlantic. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I'm saying it's, from what I've seen, it's not out of the question just yet.
Basically, it's unpredictable, and it's just as solid as a prediction as any other.
Just on a latest measurement, according to the imagery as of 20 minutes ago, I think it is. As of 23 minutes ago, David, the center of Maria was located 5 miles west of the location that you're showing us now.
5 miles west.
And considering how it is moving west, I think a landfall is quite possibly occurred there. Obviously, it's had the eye. It's still in the eye by the looks of things, but it may be getting the other side a little bit now.
Yeah, I was just thinking, we still got the 30 nautical mile eye, so I reckon we're probably, within the next 5-10 minutes, we might see this becoming a little bit more rougher.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So we're certainly seeing the effects of the storm in one location, and it's probably going to be replicated very soon on the coast of China. These are some Taiwanese islands in Lianxiang province, just off the coast of China, off the mainland of China, just near Fuzhou actually. A lot of little islands off the coast there, some of them further out than others. One of the first ones to be hit, in fact the first one to be hit, is Dongyin, and then we were looking at that, and now we're looking at one of the other islands that may well get part of the eye. Beigan Island is there. That's a rather small island. Looking at it on the map here, it's not a large population center. In fact, you're looking at probably, if the camera was to pan behind us, you would see perhaps a small town there. Population maybe a few thousand.
Nathan, just looking at it, panning to the left, you can see the cars parked there. You can see the waves crashing over the walls. And I've been thinking about wave height, which is 28 feet. I don't know what the tides are, and storm surge is something that I've been thinking of.
Well, that'll obviously be in the center of the storm, but whether that translates to the landfall as well remains to be seen. But I'd take that point. We are obviously, because the storm is about to make landfall, we are going to remain on the air for at least another hour after this one. There's certainly no guarantee that Maria will make landfall on the Chinese mainland in the next hour either, so we'll just wait and see what happens here. And you can see a lot of debris down there as well, David.
Looks like they're
It's a lot of rubbish.
Looks like they're starting to get. They're starting to go back into the. Or it looks like they're starting to receive more. Or they're leaving the eye a little bit.
No, we're looking at another one now. This one's yet to see the eye yet. It's on its way.
Oh, never mind. There we.
I think that is definitely getting rougher.
Yes, that one certainly will be, because
I'm just looking at the boats.
it's getting close to close to the center of the eye.
How far is the eye from that webcam?
Good question. By our last estimate, as of about 20 minutes ago, it was 26 miles east-northeast. Now that means that the storm, at the moment, it's pretty much moving due west, so it will probably miss this particular island, but it might be worse than that for this island, because it may well get the eye wall all the way through, rather than having a little bit of peace in the eye. It's going to get 100% eye wall. Unless we get a southward jog, which I think is less than likely. It's likely to be rather a northerly jog indeed.
It's definitely getting worse.
Well, are we gonna stay on the stream until Maria makes landfall, or are we gonna...
Who knows? Who knows what we're going to do? We're here to serve, and if you've got any questions, comments, anything for us, do send your messages in and we'll do our best. You can follow our
I do have
social media
go ahead,
platforms on Facebook and Twitter. Search Force13 all in text. You can also add Force13 on Skype. You can also add my personal account on Discord, Fool13 #9094. For more details, we have a server on there as well, if you're interested in discussing the situation with fellow storm trackers. Gabe.
Just to answer at least question that I've been... Two questions from two separate people that I have seen about hurricanes being whether or not they were deserved to be retired. That one of them was Hurricane Klaus of 1990, and the other was Hurricane Palama, I think I said that right, of 2008. And I think the bigger answer is more of, it's not whether or not they deserve to be retired, it's that they were retired for their own separate reasons. And it's, if you take a look at another storm that is, we've a little bit debated on whether or not it deserved to be retired at one point, which was Otto. After it was retired because effects of the storm were apparently significant enough that it was called out and decided to have been retired. So
All right. Thank you for that.
There you go.
We're just wrapping up this hour. Stay with us. We'll be here for another hour after the short break that we'll be having shortly. I just want to read off a few of the poll things that people have been saying. Amazing Dakota thinks that Maria should be retired worldwide if there are enough fatalities. Norway Tracking says yes, reminds him of Rita. The Wisconsin weather guy says yes, because Maria's probably cursed by now. Jeanson3 says yes if Typhoon Maria costs catastrophic damage. Black Tiger Cat 150 says yes because of both Marias, essentially. And plenty of others there as well, which we'll get to if we have time. After this, stay tuned. This is Force 13 Live. We'll have more Maria shortly. Continues in a moment. You can follow Force 13's outlets, the website force13.com, our YouTube page, youtube.com/Force13, on Facebook under the same name, Force13, and our Twitter handle, it's @Force13 if you wish to get in touch. You can also add Force13 on Skype, and my personal account on Discord, Fool13, at extension 9094. watching Force 13's live streaming service. Live from Force 13 HQ and via this webcam located on the island of Beigan in Taiwan in the province of, what was it called, Linchang or something like that. It's under a typhoon warning. It's one of those islands just off the coast of China, which is about to see the full force of Maria as it is right now. It is a weakening storm, admittedly, but it is packing a punch, and as you can see here, this location is about 20 miles away from the center of Typhoon Maria. Right now, as it stands, Maria is coming for this island. We already saw in the last hour another island where significant conditions occurred, where we saw, in fact, David's going there now. Let's just fade everyone up again here. We're joined by the team in this hour consisting of David, Gabe, Mike and Orlando.
Good to be here, and sorry, you can actually see on this webcam the amount of debris on the surface.
Ah, but look how calm there. That's clearly
in the eye. Wow.
Yeah, I say it's still in the eye, Nathan. I know we're only, well, guessing to a point, but you can clearly see the amount of rubbish. I think that tide is coming in.
Interesting.
It looks like it is. Oh yeah, you can see it starting to bulge out a little bit. The storm surge looks like it's about to shoot in. I think the storm's eye the other part of the storm, they're about to go back into the eye wall. If the storm surge is starting to push back in. If you're around if you're around that area where this is, where is this again?
That one is on the first island, Dong Yin.
Okay, if you are on Yin, then you're probably about to receive the second part of the eye as this storm surge is starting to push back in.
Well, you say that, but I'm actually looking at the satellite imagery, and it appears a big hole has opened up on the eastern side of the eye wall, and funny enough, that particular island is going to get what's ever left of the eastern part of the eye wall. So fingers crossed, it's not going to be too bad, but you know, I could be completely wrong on that. Oh wow! You know, we're really. It would really be threading the needle if that was actually happening. I don't think the island will get off scot-free for the second half of the storm by any means. Having said that,
no.
But it looks to me as though a massive depletion of the eye wall will mean that the conditions may not be as ferocious on that particular island, but there will still be some heavy rainfall and some strong winds, but maybe not as bad as it could have been.
It's true.
It's
go
high
ahead.
tide now.
That's always a good sign.
Oh, look at that tide. It's starting to... See that water is starting to... Yeah, it looks like it's getting a little bit rough now.
Yeah, high tide was 6:05 a.m. 0.93 meters.
Let's also take a little look at Hurricane Chris. Well, this is the one that really brings up questions. How strong do you think it is, viewers? It's really getting its act together. We've put out an estimate at this hour. You may have seen it at the start of the hour. We've put it now at 90 miles per hour and a pressure of 978 millibars. That's not official, and that may also be conservative, just like the National Hurricane Center. When you look at the storm right now, I mean, I would say just looking at it, it may be a Category 2, but it does have to hold that appearance for a little while for it to be bona fide, I suppose. So keep looking at it, and in a few hours maybe we can call that a Category 2 and maybe advancing through Category 2 towards 3.
At this point, I think it's like you said, if it can hold that good looking, if it can hold that those cloud tops and eye, or even strengthen it, making it look even better, definitely Category 2. But I mean, I'm seriously debating Category 3 with this. Not right now with this imagery, but I'm debating on whether or not this thing will become a Category 3, because it's looking more likely as time has gone on.
On our live poll that we're running right now, you can take a look at that as well on our community tab on Force 13's main channel page. Oh, there's also the Joint Typhoon Warning Center's map there, but let's just go back here and just to let you know about that, that is over there on the channel page right now. There's been over 100 votes on that already during our live stream, so get voting and see how it goes. At the minute it's quite resounding. Do you think the World Meteorological Organization should break its convention and retire the name Maria worldwide? Now, the convention is that if a storm is retired in a particular basin, then that retirement carries only in that basin, not the world over. Now, we had Hurricane Maria last year, which devastated Dominica, Puerto Rico and several other islands in the Caribbean, and now we've got Maria, which could be devastating the coast of China. Do we think, the majority of people do think, that they should go and break convention and retire Maria? After 107 votes, it's at 83% yes. Does anyone disagree with that sentiment?
I don't disagree with that. I think as long as this Maria, as Typhoon Maria here, has caused enough damage to make China and the surrounding island, or even I don't know about Guam, but I do definitely think about China and the surrounding islands around it, that if they think the storm was bad enough that mentioning the name, or that it is just due for retirement, then we could very well see no more Marias anywhere. I think it's...
Oh look, we've got the imagery running properly now. At least some of it. Anyway, you can see the top right hand screen, visible imagery there from Ghost 16 of Chris, looking even better on visible actually than it does on the infrared. We'll try and get that visible imagery up for you shortly as well. In the meantime, I'd like David to show us something so I can go and look at something else, basically.
I'm just trying to bring up the warnings from China. Okay. The Chinese issued the red alert nearly 24 hours ago, and that is the track chart that the National Meteorological Center has in place.
I'll be back in a minute.
So you can see it's, I mean, that is actually, that's from ages ago, that track map.
Yes, it's actually, well, nearly 24 hours, so still about another hour, Nathan, before they update it.
Alright, let's take a look again at the latest imagery of Maria right now as it moves in towards land. David, I don't know about you, the last frame of this animation is about 25 minutes ago. And the first image, okay, let's get the actual times. The first image is 9:02 UTC. The last image there is 10:37 UTC PM. The current time now is 11:10. So based off that, I would suggest that landfall may be, well, this hour, whilst we're on the air here.
Oh, it's pretty close to it, Nathan. Just looking at the latest visible.
There's a view from David, yep, showing us the
Yeah,
visible.
definitely the. Well, I'd be right to say that the western side of the eye is now impacting the land.
Oh, certainly. And the eastern part, in fact, you can visibly see the indent on the eastern side of the eye here. The very tiny island that you can see on the edge of that indent is the one that we saw on the webcam earlier, the first island, Dong Yin. The other webcam that we saw is Bei Gan, which is going to be just about in the eye any moment now, to be honest. It will just about clip the southern side of the eye. So it will just about get the eye on that island as well. The storm's starting to fall apart, let's face it, and it will continue to do so as it moves inland. It may not even be 115 miles per hour Category 3 anymore. It may have gone down a little bit more. I would expect, though, right now, obviously, I think over there they use kilometers per hour, so around 185 kilometer per hour winds sustained with higher gusts of well over 200 kilometers per hour, quite possible, along that whole coastline there. Taiwan, the main island, you can see from the visible here, is almost out of the woods. Not quite. It's just about getting rid of some of those residual bands, and then it's going to get much better for northern Taiwan. Southern Taiwan, it looks like it's already in the clear. Those Japanese islands, they still have gale advisories in effect, and there's still a lot of cloud coverage there. Some more rain may be falling in that area. Further towards the northeast, looking calm over Okinawa and the Amami Islands. And over Japan itself, it's pretty calm this morning too. What's David showing us now? Still the same thing.
It's a visible, Nathan.
Alright, let's just do a little change here, and now we have some imagery of Chris. This is some visible imagery as night begins to fall over Chris. To get a sense of perspective on where it is, if I just drag it a little bit to the right, a little bit further, yes, there it is. There's the island of Bermuda right the way on the right hand side of your screen there. So that's where the storm is right now, right in the middle, almost in the middle, between the Outer Banks of North Carolina and Bermuda. And I believe, looking at this, David, you may agree with me, or anyone else in the room right now, that it is still moving maybe a little bit east of forecast, and that's good news for Atlantic Canada.
Yes.
Alright, let's get back to the webcam footage, because it's looking a bit worse over there, David.
I would say so. There's the rain. I think the rain has picked up a bit.
Looks that way to me, yes. Quite a lot, actually.
Yeah, I've just actually been communicating with somebody in the chat on this side. And,
if you've got any questions for us in this hour, please do send them in, or any comments at all. Start your message with Force 13. It will light up big and bright for me, and I'll be able to answer the question to the best of our ability. We're now looking at the other webcam of that. Look at that. That is
calm.
on Dongyin. Still very calm there. And if we look back at that satellite imagery, I would say that Dongyin is now... I'm not sure. Let me just... Dongyin may have just got away with one here, David.
Yes, I thought it might have been a little bit more rougher, but it's the other.
Well, it's because there is a hole in the eastern side of the eye, eastern side of the eye wall, which is just so happens to be right now over this island. So it could be a lot worse over there than it currently is.
And Nathan, looking at this one, I'm just noticing the height of the water to the wharf or jetty, a wharf. So it would have been a lot worse if wave height had been up over 30, 35, even 40 feet. We know wave height got up to, I think it was 48.
Here is a question that's just come in. Two, actually. Do you think that the UK and Ireland should prepare for possible tropical storms like Ophelia last year? Well, being here, I would like to tell you no. Norway Tracking says, what would happen if you put a floppy disk inside a hurricane, David?
No comment. But more serious.
Yeah.
I was looking at the wind field for Hurricane Chris, and that northwestern area of the UK could we see some bad weather coming from Chris.
Who, sorry?
Hurricane Chris up there in the Atlantic.
Yeah, I got that.
Could the west coast of the UK see
some
bad weather?
The UK press is going completely bananas. Parts of the
Are they
press
going bananas on it?
already? Yes, part of the UK press.
You're joking.
The lesser favoured part of the UK press is going bananas over the potential of Chris arriving. It's not going to be anything interesting. By the way, look at that latest imagery on Chris there. You can see a flare, a convective flare up there encircling the eye, and it's quite a neat effect there from all across the eastern side of the eye. I wonder if I could get a 1-minute version of that animation for you shortly. Whilst I go and get that, if David could show us something, that would be really nice.
Oh, we'll come back to
there we are, back to the webcam in... I keep forgetting the names. Baygan, which is right next to the eye right now. It is on the edge of the eye, probably undergoing the worst part of the eye wall that it will see. We'll just leave that on the screen for a little while whilst I try and go and get some more imagery. Does anyone else want to chime in at this point? Now's a good time. If anyone's here with us, I don't know.
I'm not sure.
Hidden away.
Nelson!
Nelson's not here. Gabe?
No.
Are you...
Okay.
Are you seeing Chris right
voice.
now?
I'm here. I'm here.
Are you seeing Chris right now?
No.
Well, you should. It's looking interesting.
Is it really?
I think so. I'm going to get some more imagery for that shortly. Again, you're looking at latest webcam imagery.
Oh wow, okay.
From Baygan,
big flare
which
of
is
convection.
one of the islands just offshore China, and you can see again waves crashing ashore there. Obviously, it's getting towards the worst part of the storm.
Oh, so you can see some water getting up there. Okay.
There are some interesting questions on the way. I will get to them. I want to get to them, so I will get there as soon as possible. I'm just trying to get some more imagery up on the screen. Let's try now on these questions. What are the odds that New Orleans will see another Katrina in the next 40 years? Well, they almost saw one 35 years before before Katrina itself in the form of Camille. You know, I think there's a significant chance. I wouldn't say it's very likely or very unlikely. In 40 years, maybe double it to 80 years, I'd say it's likely.
I think personally, if Camille actually affected New Orleans to that point, that it wouldn't have been as bad as Katrina. Because things were more maintained back then than they were now. There was so much pollutants, and the water wasn't even able to like, you know, swim across. It wasn't healthy at all. So even after the flooding, you'd basically be stuck in the roof. While in the 60s, things were much cleaner in New Orleans, especially in the now impoverished area.
How interesting.
Well, I mean, we're also talking about a landfall that is bringing winds of over 175 miles per hour. So, and from what I heard, the storm surge was, at the time in Mississippi, was actually very comparable to Katrina. So we may have seen something. So I mean, Camille is a very good comparison to Katrina, in my opinion. Anyway, it's a very good comparison to Katrina. But I mean, just like picking up on what Orlando said, that the poverty is much worse now, even before Katrina, than what it was back in the 60s going into the 70s. So I'm not so sure about I don't know about the damage, but the fatalities probably would have been a little bit lower. And if you take a look at if you put Camille back into today, if you recreated the storm today, you could be seeing damages of about 40 billion. Some estimates.
We're looking at the latest 1-minute imagery as night begins to fall over Hurricane Chris. Again, you can see that flare-up of convection on the right-hand side, the eastern side of the storm's eye, traveling all around to the northern side. It's looking pretty good, and I certainly think it's on its way.
I think personally, if, let's say, we replace Katrina with Camille, and somehow, you know, we have a magic Category 5 headings for New Orleans, I think it would be much, much worse than the Katrina we had.
Yeah, it really would be. Actually, I read up somewhere, I forgot where it was, but I mean, I read up somewhere that
we would basically be talking about not even... People wouldn't even have roofs to go to if we had a Camille replacing Katrina.
That's very true. I mean, even just 100... I mean, you're basically being put inside an F4 tornado that lasts for hours at a time, for about 1, 2, maybe 3 hours at the maximum. And your average EF4 tornado is very, very devastating on its own, definitely destroying house.
And imagine having a flooding during that too at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about, if you were to replace Camille with Katrina, Katrina was a very large system. It was, I think at its peak, it was about just the radius of the tropical storm wind field extended out to about 100 miles. So that's a nearly 300. So you're basically taking a storm the size of Texas, and then you threw it at New Orleans. That's what Katrina was, and on almost a Category 3 or 4 storm as it made landfall. But I mean, if you just replaced it with Camille, the damage would be very different, because Camille was much smaller than Katrina was, even though it was stronger.
Of course. storm surge also would have been larger.
Yeah, it would. It really would have been. I forget. I think some reports.
I think it's 20. I think it's 25 feet. I think.
I think that's what it was for. Okay.
We're deviating for too long. Let's get us some more questions. Thoughts on Noru's downgrade and Lan's missed upgrade, referring to the 2 Typhoons that we had last year. Missed upgrade that was for Lan. I personally stand by what Force 13 went with for both of those storms, that they were both just about Category 5 storms. What do you guys think? Well, Lan more than just about. We put 175, and I think that was justified.
Yeah, I agree. I do stand by Lance 175, and I do stand by Noru's 160. And I actually looked and found that Lan had an incredibly large eye that was about 60 miles in diameter, and that would be the largest eye diameter for any Category 5, and that's probably the reason why they kept it down to that's why they kept it as low as 155, and its large size and whatnot. But I mean, the reason why I bring up the eye diameter is because for a Category 5, that's incredibly huge, and the only other storm that comes anywhere close to that is Isabel on its 3rd peak, which on its 3rd Category 5 peak, which was about 40 miles per hour. And Noru intensified very, very quickly, so I can kind of see why they would put Noru down to 155, because it was such quick intensification. But otherwise, I still stand by my estimates, and as Nathan said, he stands by his estimates.
Well, there we are. We did have some more questions as well. We're probably trailing behind now. Let's see if we have anything else. Not been looking very much. Well, there's an easy question to answer. Is it possible that there were South Atlantic hurricanes in the past before humans existed? Yes, I would think so, you know. Just like hurricanes anywhere else in the world before records began, really.
Yes.
Any more waves coming off of Africa, or is the dry air and dust stopping anything from forming? Well, it didn't stop Beryl, but for a significantly sized storm, it will be a big problem, I think, at the minute. That could change over time.
I was wondering what the dust storm, I was wondering if we could talk about how the dust storm that's over the Atlantic, how it would affect tropical cyclone development. I mean, obviously we have a lot of dry air there, and as we would say, oh dear, look at all that. Just a side note, look at all the waves. They're just starting to get very, very rough there. I think they're starting to receive.
I think
it began Taiwan. I think they're receiving it looks like they're receiving the worst conditions that they've received all day, and that they may be receiving all day, unless the storm. No, I don't think the storm would.
It must really be on the edge of the eye by now. And I wonder, David, you know, you've had that page up for quite a while now, haven't you?
Yes, and the other one's starting to get a bit rough too. Given
how it's always cutting out on you like that, you might want to reload that page and see if you can catch up any to the future, as it were, to see where the see how it's looking. Yeah,
it is playing up. Well, listen, I just want to bring up the total precipitable water, and you can clearly see where Maria is. No, sorry, Hurricane Chris for the Atlantic. You can actually see the motion. I go back to an earlier comment of mine where I said it appeared that it adopted a bit of a southerly track. Then Now it's heading to the northeast.
Going back to Chris, what are the chances of seeing Category 3 intensity?
I would say quite substantial if it continues going as it is at the minute. What do you think?
I agree. I
agree. I would have to agree with you.
I think Chris is surely on its path to Category 3. It looks really good, especially with that flare of convection over the eye wall going over up into the northern part of the eye wall. If that continues and that starts to actually encircle it, then I wonder how often the NHC is gonna, or how long the NHC can actually, if it's taken them this long. What I mean is that if it's taken them this long to update Chris to Hurricane, how long it would take them to realize if or when Chris became a Category 3, how long it would take them to realize that.
Nathan, I think this
no. Go ahead.
typhoon might be impacting the live streaming cams. Apology for that.
Well, it wouldn't surprise anyone if that was indeed the case.
Now this is a look at the radar. I captured this. It's a few hours old now, I think. Just so I need a date stamp, the time. Actually, earlier this morning, I think it was. Yep.
Here's another view from Taiwan's radar of what the storm looked like earlier on and how it has been progressing. This was overnight. So a little bit slow. I think it's the fastest speed for it, but this is how the storm has been progressing, and significant rain amounts over Taiwan, northern Taiwan there.
And this was extracted from another site. I haven't, Nathan. If you've got something. That
we're showing one here. Yes.
All right. Well, I'll go and search it for more info.
I'm just wondering how far the imagery goes here. 710 is the final image on that. Let's just get back to that last image. That's the latest image as of 7:10 local time. That is about 20 minutes ago. That's how the storm looked there from Taiwanese radar. And it appears to me it is sort of near the edge of the scale, but actually maybe the satellite's a bit misleading, because in fact, David, could you possibly go back to the first webcam on Dong Yin, because it looks to me on this radar that the eye is ending there now, round about now.
Hang on.
That the other side may well be coming in here.
Is it that one you want, or
yes,
the other one? Okay.
So here we are looking again at Dong Yin, and leave this up for a little while if possible.
Right.
From the east, I don't know which way the camera's pointing, but you can see it's not quite as calm as it was before, and I reckon that the second part of whatever's left of that eye wall is going to come in very soon.
Actually, I want to make a comment here. You can, if you look really closely, you can actually see the eye wall of the storm, because you can see a bit of, if you look up at the top of the image of the camera, you can kind of see where there's a bit of light, and then there's just like this big wall of darkness, and I think that might be the eye.
Not sure. Interesting.
I can see. Well, I don't know.
Well, I agree with you, Gabe. I can also see that.
Yeah, I mean, okay. Well, good. That's not just me. it's a bit difficult to see, but I bet you in not too much longer, this and
The break, yeah, that's what. Yeah, I can notice. I can see the top right-hand corner where it's a lot lighter. So
Yeah.
that could be. Yep, I'll support that.
Now I think it looks to me as though that camera is pointing southwest, judging by satellite imagery. So that would mean that we're looking into the eye.
That's what I'm thinking.
so. Okay, well that is very. So we're not looking at the edge of the eye wall. We're okay.
It would appear that well I don't know, because the eye wall may well be coming in now, but I wouldn't. I don't know. We are where we are with this.
Yeah.
I see what you mean. I mean, some of these swells also kind of look like they're coming from the other direction. I don't really know, to be honest with you. I mean, the water is kind of coming towards the camera from where we appear to be seeing the eye. So I don't know.
And
if
you notice the wind coming along the top of the water. You can actually see the wind that's coming from the top right hand down to the left hand side. You can actually see. So it looks like, would it be northeasterly wind?
I have no idea. We're just kind of guessing at this point. Starting to get a bit more violent there now. That's for sure. It's getting a tad bit more. So I think. So regardless of where this is and where it's coming from, we might be about to see this camera show the other side of the eye.
Yeah, that is imminent. It would appear.
Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed.
We're just sort of sitting around looking at everything as it's happening at the minute. The storm getting ever closer to land. You can see on the satellite imagery towards the top left-hand side there's multiple different variations of the imagery. If you can't see that break in the eastern side of the storm, then, well, it is there now. It's quite clear to see. If you didn't see it earlier, it must clearly be visible now. There is a significant break over there on the eastern side of the storm, and it's slowly wrapping around towards the north. This storm on the eastern side appears to be done for all intents and purposes. To the north, it still looks very severe, and to the west, for those areas that are experiencing the landfall, the eventual landfall as it will be, the city of Fuzhou in China, population 4.5 million. The city of Ningde in China is likely to get at least the inner eye wall, possibly the eye. That's got a population of over 2 million. And Wenzhou, further north, is a significant distance away, but still could see some significant winds, possibly getting towards typhoon strength. Serious situation, coming to a climax here, and the landfall is imminent, and finally we can get rid of Maria again, as it were.
For a moment.
Go ahead.
Apologize. If you look at the latest satellite image with me on this, the whole structure of the storm looks very healthy. The eye itself, everything.
Which one?
I think it shows definite sign that it's strengthening.
I'm guessing you mean Chris. We keep missing you.
Yeah, I think
Chris.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, he's talking about Chris.
Yeah, well, Chris has been looking very good recently. Let's see if we can get some more imagery of that now. We're obviously watching two things at the same time, so do bear with us if we go on talking about another thing if it's not the thing that you're looking for from us, because we have two situations that are ongoing. This is Chris, looks to be intensifying still in the Atlantic. Oh, the latest frames there showing that maybe the eye has just waned ever so slightly, so I'd certainly hold off anything more than any 100-mile-an-hour predictions. Maybe, you know, it could still collapse as quickly as it's developed here, and anyone who says that it's a category 2 right now could have egg on their faces in an hour or two. We'll have to see what happens, or it could continue to intensify and get towards category 3 status.
Nathan, you can note on the screen that the other webcam conditions are deteriorating. Wow. You can actually see the water now over the retaining wall, or the waves. So that it has actually worsened.
Although I believe that was happening last time. Oh, there's actually standing water there.
Yeah, you can actually see the water. So I say that storm surge.
Could be, yeah. We're looking again.
And quite a bit of rubbish, debris in the water too.
What you're looking at here, if you've just joined us, is Beigan, B-E-I-G-A-N, if there's any pronunciation issues on my part.
I'm gonna see if that. So repeat that. I'm gonna see if I can't get a proper translation for that.
That's one of those islands off the coast of China that's part of Taiwan. B-E-I-G-A-N is the name of at least the town on the island. I assume the island goes by the same name.
That webcam's actually in the town, starting with the B.
Yes, the island isn't really much bigger than the town. It's one of those places that has where the runway of the airport there is part of its geography. They've had to do some work to put it onto the island, basically. But this is a live look at Beigan in Taiwan as we get towards the end of July 10th UTC. Of course, it's already July 11th over on the east coast of Asia, and it's around 2 hours after dawn, and it's hard to get a perspective on how strong those winds are there because the rain just completely ripples away, and I have to do a double take whether those light fixtures up there are swaying or not. They probably are a little bit, but the rain makes it look so much worse.
Another good observation.
Rough seas, certainly. So these are the two features that we are watching live. Maria and Chris. Maria very close indeed now to making a landfall. And let me see if I can possibly get some visible imagery in real time for you, or near real time for you as well. That might take a moment or two. But at the minute you're looking at Beigan in Taiwan. Obviously, typhoon warnings are in effect for a large part of Taiwan, north and central. Unfortunately, the visible imagery doesn't cover the actual area of the storm, the 1 minute imagery at least. What we can show you as well as this is the latest visible imagery from the normal Himawari 10-minute imagery. Here's the latest visible, and you can see that landfall is very close indeed on the Chinese mainland, but obviously radar shows that it is still a little bit further away than what the satellite may imply. Let's see if we can get some precipitation estimates now in Taiwan. I'll try and get that as soon as possible.
I think it's I think what we were saying was correct. It doesn't really matter right now. What really matters is what's happening.
As of 7 AM, the precipitation chart looks like this. This covers only the 7 hours since midnight local time, and it's getting towards 8 o'clock in the morning local time. As you can see on here, many areas have received quite a few areas have received 100 millimeters of rainfall or higher in that 7 hour period. Taipei has received anywhere from around 50 millimeters to up to 200 millimeters near the northern tip of Taiwan and on some of those mountains. As you can see, the south has been very light indeed, and on those islands that we're looking at right now, we were looking at on the webcam, in the 7 hours just past, there's been around 30 millimeters of rain in this area. David, your thoughts?
I was just looking at the rainfall. I've just had to reboot another computer. I'm actually looking at another live webcam, Nathan, and I just want to bring it up. Let's see.
Somewhere.
So,
there'll be a Chinese one.
Orlando?
How many spots have Maria made landfall to?
I still didn't catch that. What were you asking?
How many landfalls has Maria made?
Well, it's a very good question. I don't think anyone knows the answer just yet.
Probably around, including all the other smaller islands, it could have made as many as 5 or 6 landfalls.
But then we go on to the
honest.
definition of a landfall again. What constitutes a landfall?
A landfall is not when the very, very center of the storm makes a landfall, not the very center of the eye, but I mean...
Well, it depends who you go by.
Yeah, it does, but I mean, by other sources, a landfall is...
Certainly in East Asia that's the case, yes.
Yeah, is the eye going over any part of land. The actual calm eye. Oh, there we go.
David, any thoughts for us right now, looking back at that webcam? Please leave that with us for a little while here.
Alright. I was just going to bring up another one.
Oh.
Sorry, I'll bring it back. I just want to bring this up. XIJU Zing Van Harbour.
Where on earth's that?
I think it's got to be China.
Well, either one of the Taiwanese islands, or we'll try and find out a little bit later.
We're nearing our
Actually, it's the same source, so... Oh, where's that now?
I'm not sure if that might be the same place or not. Unfortunately, I can't go and do the research right now as I'm...
Alright, leave it with me on.
But there you can see again another look at what's going on here. We'll take your comments and questions in a little while. There's also the poll running if you're still interested in that and haven't voted yet. It might be interesting to see what result we do get by the end of our stream. Should Maria be retired worldwide? Should the World Meteorological Organization break its convention and retire Maria worldwide? It should be that Maria is only retired in its basin. That's what retirement usually constitutes. But there is a clamour, I believe, And certainly we've witnessed that clamour in our results so far. You can change that, of course, for that to be the case.
Nathan, it's in the it's in that group of the two major Matsu Islands, Donggu
Yeah, I figured
Island.
it was
So
probably
it's the
somewhere
same,
there.
yeah, the same location, which would be the northern islands. So actually two different islands. The one with the B is to the southwest
on
of Dongying.
I'm sorry. Southwest of
And
Dongyin.
Nangan is the one
Nangan, yes.
to the southwest of the Big Gan.
Yes.
And Dongying
So-
is the northern.
But where is this one?
This one is on Dongying,
It is on
the northern island.
Dongyin, right?
Yes.
So that is the one that was initially hit by the storm's eye.
So what we've been looking at is three, two on Dongyin and the other one on
That's right.
Beijing. And this one that we're looking at is the Xingfan Harbour, which I think's on the
I see.
Oh no, this is confusing. Well,
But again,
Anyway.
we're looking at it there, so
Yep.
that is what we're seeing right now, and that scene is being replicated most likely in a lot of other locations along the coast of China, along those Taiwanese islands. Obviously, it's the time, you know, everyone should have hunkered down long ago, and thankfully we're not seeing anyone anywhere near these areas here.
Yes, that's a good thing. I think I remember when you guys were doing a live stream on Matthew, we saw some people out on the webcam,
Oh.
and I highly advise, and I'm pretty sure everyone else will too, that you never ever do that. If you are in a warning, or here's a better thing. Even further inland areas, might be about to be affected by Maria, you guys are still going to see very, very heavy conditions, especially rainfall, especially possibly even as high as typhoon force winds. So be on the lookout for that, and hunker down while you still can, because these areas should have people already hunkered down, and there you go.
And look at it, it is pretty crazy.
Yes.
Alright, I think we have some time for questions now at last. Oh, where's it gone? There it is again. Oh, now you're showing... Ah, look at this.
back to, and all these are in the Republic of China territory.
Correct. So again, we're looking at Dongyin here.
I think conditions are worse, and you can't see the.
Yeah, I think we're seeing the other side of the storm
Yeah.
now. Considering the camera's moving southwest, facing southwest, the water is moving right there. So the wind is blowing. Trying to work out my directions here. Northwest, right? Does that make any sense at all? I don't think it does, but well, that appears to be the case.
Actually, well, you're looking at the wind now. It's changed to a northeasterly. It was coming.
It's
from
changed.
The
There.
top right.
Look at that.
It's now coming from the left to the top right.
Yeah,
In other
certainly
words,
changed.
the point we were, Nathan, you're
Maybe
right.
I'm
the
maybe
point
I'm
we
wrong
were
about the
looking
camera direction, but it's certainly
I don't think
changed.
you are. I don't think you are. I think you were spot on. You
Oh,
can see
that's definitely powerful now.
Yeah,
You can
you can
actually
see
see
it
the-
starting to spray. You can start seeing it spray and lift. Okay, so I think this. So look. Oh, there we go. Okay, so yeah, this area is now starting to going right back into the eye wall of Maria now.
Yeah, into the other eye wall here.
Very interesting to note. Okay, well, there's about 2 questions that I've been able to find. Will there be a 3rd hour of coverage?
Find out after the break.
There we go. And then, if I can find it.
There was another one I believe I saw as well, yeah. We'll also find it. Do send in your questions.
Oh,
Start
okay.
your message with Force 13
Don't
all in
sh-
text.
Force 13, do you think Chris's current presentation is similar to Lee 2's on, or Lee the 2nd's on September
Nice.
26th?
Yes, I can see that similarity. I was actually looking at Lee's imagery just today, so I did see it not so long ago. I think it will end up looking better than Lee because it is further south. It can get those colder cloud tops because of its lower latitude.
As Nathan said, guys, comment, send your questions in, and we'll read them out and answer while we're kind of waiting here.
We're not waiting particularly, but yeah, pretty much.
Well, we're
obviously-
waiting. Well, we are waiting for this thing to.
Well.
We're waiting for the break, almost.
There must be some news. There is some news on Beryl. It is still at 50% chance. They've just updated at 8 PM Eastern Time. A plane again is scheduled to investigate on Wednesday afternoon. We haven't really been looking at Beryl because obviously we're looking at this. You can see how strong those winds are right now. Look at that. It's a very strong wind gust there over the water.
Stronger than what we were seeing earlier, that's for sure.
Certainly. We're staying on the air for at least another hour. Maria hasn't quite made landfall yet. We're back after this. Stay tuned. This is Force 13 Live. We continue. We're looking at Chris. We're looking at Maria. And hopefully you won't need to look at me so much, but here I am anyway. We'll be back again shortly. Stay tuned and ask any questions. Shoot. Whatever you'd like to ask us, we're here to serve. Our live coverage continues in a moment. You can follow Force 13's outlets, the website, force13.com, our YouTube page, youtube.com/Force13, on Facebook under the same name, Force 13, and our Twitter handle, it's @Force13 if you wish to get in touch. You can also add Force 13 on Skype, and my personal account on Discord, Fool13, at extension 9094. watching Force 13's live streaming service. Into our third hour of coverage, perhaps, on Typhoon Maria, and here is the latest. Quite clearly, the other side of the eye wall has reached Dongyin in Taiwan. The other side of the eye wall. The eye is now just about to make landfall on the coast of China. You saw that position estimate just before. I think it said, I don't have it with me anymore, something like 35 miles south-southeast of, what was it called? One of those place names. We're all over the place tonight. Typhoon, which is a significant town to the north of the storm. Significant population centres in the way of Maria as well, and we'll obviously be watching that very closely indeed. In particular, we're concerned about Ningde, or Ningdi, not sure about the pronunciation. That's a population there of 2 million, and Fuzhou, of course, further south, which could get hurricane typhoon conditions. That's got a population of 4.5 million. I'm joined by the team again in this hour, and would you look at what's going on in Dongyin right now?
Definitely worsening, and good to be here for the third hour.
Hello. I'm in agreement. I think it's starting to really pick up over there. Looks like you can really start to see that those winds carrying that mist very, very well. It's definitely better than last time we showed it on air. So it looks like whatever is going to, yeah, you can definitely see it now. Whatever's going to be happening is going to be, people need to re-prepare before they go right back into the storm's eye wall, if they're not already inside of it. They probably already are.
Yep, indeed. Well, we're still running a poll, by the way, on our community page right now, if you're interested. Do you think the World Meteorological Organization should break their usual convention and retire the name Maria worldwide? We've had that up for over 2 hours now. There's been over 150 votes so far. 81% of you say yes. Well, again, we're continuing to look at the imagery there. Look at that. Like a particularly strong wind gust.
Yes, I'll just...
There's a good one.
You can see on the satellite imagery here how close the storm is now to making landfall in China. It's a matter of miles until it reaches the mainland coastline.
Nathan, what do you reckon the central pressure of Maria is?
Well, the Japan Meteorological Organization Agency, sorry, I keep making that mistake. The JMA think it's 955 millibars. The latest from the Joint Typhoon Warning Center, they thought 948 millibars.
And to throw this one into the works, the Central Weather Bureau has it at 9:30.
9:30.
I don't.
So,
I'm not so sure about 9:30, but I mean, at least 9:55 is. Is that what the JMA has it at? 9:55.
Last I saw.
Okay,
It certainly won't have gone
then-
down since then.
I think 9:55 is. I think that sounds pretty good for a nearly landfalling, about to be a landfalling storm. Here.
And finally, we had agreement on the wind speed. Both the JMA and the JTWC actually agree on something, that it is 115 miles per hour. That's roughly 185 kilometers per hour. Sustained winds inside this storm with higher gusts, no doubt. And you're probably seeing some of them here.
Definitely very strong over there. In a minute, unless we can check on Chris. Let's see how we can probably check on Chris in a little bit, but I mean, definitely see some of those wind gusts starting to.
Not much going on with
Really-
Chris right now that we've not already covered. We're staying with Maria for now and what it's doing along these islands here.
All right.
David, anything that you've noticed in the last few minutes from this camera?
visibility has what's the word? Worsened. It's actually closing in, and that's probably due to the rain. The wind has definitely picked up, and it's has changed direction. And if you look at the direction of the waves, I'd say it's variable wind.
It's what?
Variable.
Variable.
In other words, it's coming in from. But so basically, southwest to the northeast, and probably a bit of. See, I'm not sure the location. Easterly, the left to right on the image, but it's definitely the conditions have worsened. So it's now experiencing what the outer wall.
Certainly.
I'll just.
There's another. Yeah.
Well, while we're sitting here a little bit, someone wants to know when do you think you'll be doing the what might have been season for Typhoon?
I didn't want that question to be on air because it's quite inappropriate. In light of the current circumstances.
Oh,
But
I
it's been
apologize for
noted
that.
to the person that put it. The Nathan, information from the Central Weather Bureau really hasn't changed, and not hardly anything from the Chinese office. I haven't cited any updated information. Although we have the yellow warning in place, aside the red warning.
Yeah, what we do have is the latest rain chart for Taiwan. This is as of 8 AM local time, the accumulated precipitation since midnight. You may have noticed the islands to the northwest there, those are the ones we're looking at right now, was only at about 20 odd millimeters in total in the last hour. That's shot up to in the 30s now, so 10 millimeters in an hour there, David.
So the rainfall, the rain has picked up. So, sorry, what quadrant was it? What side? The southwest or westerly?
On those islands,
Of
basically.
the system. Right, yes.
10 millimeters in the last hour.
Right.
Again, it's fairly glitchy.
Yes. Go back to that one.
Again, we're looking at webcams in Dongyin. This is the island that had the eye pass over not so long ago. You saw the calm if you were here in the last hour, the calm of the eye. I think I just saw a little bit of debris falling down there
Yes,
as well.
I just cited that, Nathan. So, as we've said, conditions have worsened considerably, and you can definitely see the spray and the direction that it's
Looks to be
being
getting
pushed.
worse. Looks to be the worst that we've seen it so far.
I would support that.
I wanted to know, have we covered just about every... So are we just kind of sitting here watching the storm now?
Well, we are basically doing that, and we're loading up any graphics that we've got here, and taking everyone's questions and comments. We don't want our viewers to miss out on any information that they may want, and hopefully we can deliver.
Okay, well, I mean, I think I'm gonna go ahead and bug out of here. I think I've answered just about everything
Okay.
I need to. So, hope the situation doesn't get any worse than it pretty much already is, and remember, people in China and elsewhere, if you're in Maria's path and you haven't already received Maria conditions, be on alert and be prepared before the storm hits your areas inland. And
You know, I think everyone is well prepared here, because, you know, we've had 5 days of warnings. It became a Category 5 before approaching this area as a Category 3. I suppose it's better for a storm to be a Category 5 first to get everyone's attention, and then weaken, rather than the other way round.
Very much
Agreed.
so. I very much agreed. Alright, well, take care, you guys. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
We're
Good night.
Still looking at the imagery here from Dongyin as the storm continues to move through. Ram Turtle asks me, do you think Chris could be a Category 2 at 11 PM Eastern Time? I would be shocked if it was not, they say, considering the Dvorak score of 5.6 and the cloud tops. Well, I'm not sure if I'd be surprised if the NHC shied away from designating it a Category 2. At the moment, I wouldn't mind if they didn't. Although, if by 11 o'clock Eastern Time the storm still looks, if Chris still looks as good as it does at the minute, if we just... Obviously we have to switch gears a few times whilst we're on the air here, because we've got a few things going on. Here's another look at Chris out there in the Atlantic, and as you can see, it's been looking very good in the last few frames. I would say if it does maintain that appearance until 11 PM Eastern Time, they should call it a Category 2. At the minute, it needs to hold on a little bit longer, but some good convection blowing up around the northern side there. Meanwhile, back at Maria HQ here, you can see that the storm is continuing to push towards land, and it appears to me, David, that it will now happen in this hour.
No doubt, I agree. When you look at the imagery and the intensity, and naturally it's in the outer eye areas, but that is intense. And you can actually see the rain actually increasing. You can see it going along where the buildings are. And I think you can actually see the rain close to the camera. But that wind is definitely stronger.
This is what the radar picture looked like at 8 o'clock local time. So that's 15 minutes ago. You can see the island that David is showing the webcam from. It's inside the eastern part of the eye wall there. It actually doesn't look that bad on the radar, but it is coming from Taipei, I'm assuming, or northern Taiwan somewhere. So it is near the edge of its scope. So it can be a bit misleading, but you can quite clearly see the eye is still offshore and will probably... I don't know if it will make landfall this hour, you know, but it's going to get very close.
Can I just refer to Twitter? Weather Zone is reporting that Typhoon Maria is currently making landfall in eastern China.
Oh yeah, it's easy to say that. It's easy to say that it's currently making landfall. By the way, it looks like the winds have shifted on that imagery. Winds are now coming from
the northwest.
Yes.
That's why I threw
northeast,
in the word
actually, I think.
Variable.
Northeast, I think.
You can definitely see. Well, when we started looking at it, it was from the top right, so the northeast to southwest. But now it's... But you clearly... A bit of northerly there too.
Well, it is variable, as you say. And variable by each second, and it looks rather dangerous at this time. Obviously, typhoon warnings are in effect all across the northern half of Taiwan and a little bit more than that. All the typhoon warnings in Japan were lifted before we went on air tonight. Gale advisories remain in effect for most of the Ryukyu Islands, excluding the Amami Islands and Kagoshima. In China, a red typhoon warning remains in effect, of course, and that will probably remain the case. Well, it should remain the case right up until its imminent landfall.
And it looks like the Taipei airport is international airport is now open again. Apparently, free flights.
Really?
Flying into Taipei.
Well, there you are. They don't hang around for very long, do they?
And HKC, TTW, and FTX prefixes, of the flights.
I see. White noise to me, I'm afraid. So again, we continue to look at the imagery, and this is what we are with right now, and well, it's been a formidable typhoon, and we're somewhat thankful that it's not as strong as it really could have been. Those sea surface temperatures, and to be honest, those in the path of the storm, if it's not as bad as expected, although it is pretty bad, as you can see, at least category 2 conditions there, I should imagine. You know, have Prapi-Rune to thank, the previous storm that struck Japan last week, because it invented a cold water trail that weakened Maria substantially. And we were looking back a few days ago, and we thought there was no way that the storm could weaken so dramatically from its category 5 status, only a little bit maybe to moderate to high-end category 4, but it did really do a number on Maria, and now it's down to minimum category 3, which is still severe, very much so. Not downplaying that whatsoever. but it could have been a 4 or even a 5 at this point.
And I was hoping the Joint Typhoon Warning Centre might have updated, but there's just no updated information available for us. And what the NHC, they should update on Chris within the next, what, couple of hours?
Yes, the National Hurricane Centre's next update coming up in 2.5 hours. If you missed it, they did do an update on the remnants of Beryl, in case you're still interested in that. It's still at 50% in the next 5 days.
And for those interested in having a chat with us and Nathan, it's Force 13 on Skype and 9094 Discord.
Yeah, you might want to reiterate that on the Discord. It's Fool 13 at extension 9094. It shows up at the end of each
Unfortunately, Nathan's
hour.
signal has just
No,
dropped.
my signal's fine, David. It must be your signal.
Because the first part of your message went dead, but never mind. So, Nathan, but the information.
My signal's a little bad as well.
So,
Mike, have you got anything for us at this hour? What are your thoughts?
Hold on, let me just check the GFS model real quick.
Do you think with us that Maria will make landfall in China this hour?
It's very likely, but I wouldn't say certain. That's my thought. Chris, I was looking at the GFS model. It said it'll get as low as 966.
Really? When's
Yeah.
that?
Hold on, just a minute. Let me check the model. Let me go back to the tab. 966. Doesn't say. No, July the 12th.
Tomorrow. Well, 2 days from now, over on there on the East Coast. Interesting. Let's bring us back to the latest imagery on Maria. We'll get on to Chris shortly, but I just want to bring this latest in here. Look at it now. Ooh, the northern side there really breaking up. Now that is some good news potentially there. North side not looking half as strong as it previously did, and I think, you know, the eye, it has been on the verge of collapsing all morning, but now it looks like it may be happening just as it makes landfall, and maybe the eye. And actually you're seeing the cloud tops to the west respond to that, and when an eye collapses, initially the cloud tops around the storm respond and grow in size, and maybe we're seeing that now. The beginning of the end of Typhoon Maria, but it is still a Category 3, still with winds of 115 miles per hour sustained. That's around 185 kilometers per hour, with wind gusts well over 200 kilometers per hour, which we're probably seeing still on this webcam here.
and Nathan, I'm just looking at the rainbow on Maria and the floater, and I would support what you just said. The eye is definitely collapsing. As I said, well, it's impacting mainland China, so it's been another impressive system. The eye, I think the eye feature has been outstanding, and Pabaroon, if it wasn't for that system, well, would I be right to say that conditions would have been more severe?
Ah, so much so. I would have thought. I mean, I could be wrong, but, you know, Maria had absolutely everything going for it except that cold water trail that popped up as a result of Crappy Rune. We have some questions then. Some questions more related than others. One question about, will there be any more music collections on the channel? Well, you know, there would be more work done on the channel if there weren't so many typhoons to track. So I can't really speak for that. At the minute we're on priority number 1, which is delivering the latest information and everything you need to know and need to see in relation to Typhoon Maria and Hurricane Chris. But do watch this space. Let's see what else we've got here. Where is Beryl headed? There's one question.
The remnants. You want me to do an update on that one?
Well, go and have
Or
a look.
recap?
Go and have a little look on your tabs right now, David. I'll come back to you shortly. Now we're looking at imagery of Chris here. You can see how it has been developing in the last few hours. It's another little look at Chris right now, including the latest imagery. This imagery goes up to the last frame there is just 9 minutes ago, so it is quite up to date. You can see how it's been looking. It's been looking fairly good. I wonder if maybe we could get a different version of this imagery now, perhaps. It might take a little while. I'm just seeing if I could get some other... Let's see if we can get some water vapor imagery. It starts to display slowly. Now you can see as the picture becomes more clear, it's a bit of a balancing act there. Lots of dry air to the west. Now Chris was quite wise because it's gone east of the forecast overall. Now that means two things. One, it won't turn post-tropical as quickly. It will remain tropical for longer because of better sea surface temperatures, more favourable sea surface temperatures further east, at least in general. Otherwise it's dicing with the jet stream. And secondly is that it's good news for Atlantic Canada. If it continues to move, I mean, at the minute you could still say that this movement is east-northeast rather than northeast. And that means that Atlantic Canada may well be spared by this storm now. I can't tell you that for sure, obviously. It's still a little way out, but it's still trending east. And the forecast has been trending east to the point where Nova Scotia is now well out of the forecast cone. And Newfoundland is almost out of line for a direct hit. Almost, not quite. But a bit more eastward deviation, which is what we're seeing at the minute. And Atlantic Canada may well be in the clear. We won't call that, obviously, because that is certainly not set in stone and probably won't be set in stone until the storm makes its closest approach. But it looks to me at this point as though worse conditions on those islands and coastlines have been avoided. Now, that's not to say that hurricane conditions may not occur now on those locations. Newfoundland in particular could still get hurricane force winds, whether this storm is tropical or not. Looking at the eye in those latest frames, it hasn't looked quite as potent in those latest frames on water vapor or on the infrared cloud tops. So, you know, just hold off briefly on those Category 2 projections. Go ahead.
It shows indication, I don't know, maybe the website's acting up. Where'd it go? That it shows a wave coming off Cape Verde by the 12th. Shows a wave.
And what does it do?
Forming. Basically, it starts at 1012 and then it gets down to 998 before right after the next frame. That's some sort of glitch or...
Sounds strange. Can you see anything to do with Beryl?
Beryl. Okay, Beryl also. Yeah, Beryl's indication is 966 by the 12th near
I'm sorry?
6 on the 12th.
Beryl going to 966. Are you sure about that?
Zoom in on the page. Maybe my eyes are just acting weird. But if you want to share my screen, I can show it to you.
Please.
Just a minute.
We'll get onto that as soon as your screen appears. I'll let you know. But in the meantime, we're still looking at the imagery of Chris. Of course, we're covering 2 events whilst we're on the air tonight or this morning, whoever you are around the world. And this is the latest on Maria. It is in the process of making landfall. It's not quite there yet, but as you can see, it is so very inevitable. The eye is just about to move ashore the Chinese mainland, and it looks to me as though the landfall area will be, let me try and get an actual town or position there that it may well strike. That actual,
All right, I got sharing on.
just a minute on that. The actual area of land is quite mountainous and sparsely populated, so ground zero for landfall is not going to be a heavily populated area, but there are heavily populated areas just around a dozen or 2 miles away from the landfall point, and it will get the storm's eye wall in Ningde, or Ningde, however it's pronounced, and Luoyuan. Nope, I can't pronounce it. Luoyuan. How strange. Chinese pronunciations is certainly not our forte here, but we do our best. So let's move on to Model Central with Mike. Oh goodness me.
All right, let me know when my screen is on.
Yeah, we're on.
Okay, so 9827 right now. Well, I guess that's maybe an hour
No sign
ahead.
of Beryl yet.
Sorry, just a minute, Mike.
Oh, that is okay.
As I go ahead, 979, 9721.
That's Chris.
We go ahead a little more. Yeah, that's Chris. Right here is Chris.
That's Chris.
We go ahead a little more.
Off it
Now,
goes.
if I zoom in,
Yeah, that's 966.
966.
I was talking about Beryl. I think you may be able to see a little bit of Beryl there, almost a closed isobar just northeast of the Bahamas. That could be Beryl.
did I say Beryl?
Yes, that's what we were looking for.
Oh my gosh.
But please
Oh,
continue.
I apologize.
Continue that
Losing
model
mind.
run, because we'd like to see whether Beryl reforms on the GFS there.
All right, let
Oh.
me take it back a little. We're gonna go back to.
No, go forward a bit.
Okay.
Because we got the
as
gist there.
Anyone can see at the bottom of the screen right here. Let's see Beryl no longer.
There it is, tracking up somewhere. There it is. No, further right. There it is. Could pass close to
Whoa.
Bermuda. Weak
Wait.
overall. Could be a minimal tropical
go back.
storm. Actually, that pressure's below 1,000. So
996.
that could be a
We go
weak
back
to
to-
moderate tropical storm there just northwest of Bermuda.
Now this looks like it could be another one, or it could be Beryl. This one looks like to be 966. For the 14th,
That's 996, I'm pretty sure.
right here. Yeah, 996 right here. That's 4 days from now, or
4 days
3.
from now. So that's why NHC have 50%. Certainly quite possible.
Well, yeah, I mean there are a lot of comments saying whether it's going to be an active season. We've already seen 3 in the first month of July. I mean, it doesn't
Well,
really
it's
say anything.
still going to count as 3 if it reforms as Beryl as well.
Yeah, because that's what happened with Harvey.
Yes, and unfortunately it's what happened with Lee as well, even though it shouldn't have. How strong do you think Chris is, and how strong do you think it will reach at peak intensity? I'll hand that one over to you, Mike. What do you think?
What do I'm
Looking
I
at
have
latest
2
imagery,
sides on that.
maybe it's gone off the boil slightly.
Let's see. I I mean, it's looking pretty good right now. I think peak intensity in terms of wind speed, possibly 115 miles per hour.
Interesting. I'm not going to be so bullish. My guess so far is we'll go with 105.
Actually, no, I agree with 105. I agree with you there.
I'm not
105 is better.
particularly confident that Chris will continue to intensify in this way.
However, it could intensify to just under category 2. I mean, just under category 3 intensity at 110.
Yeah.
110 miles per hour.
I wonder if we could possibly... Here's the sea surface temperatures where the storm is. And I just flick that on and off. Sea surface temperature on a gradual decrease as the storm moves northeast. And if it's already starting to lose steam now, which it may be, just look at that eastern side of the eye wall there. It's starting to get a little flaky. I wonder whether Chris might be fooling us a bit and may be about to peak as I would call it 100 miles an hour.
Let me see. I can't really put a thought on that. I would have to think about that.
Interesting anyway. Well, let's get back to the main feature, of course, and that is Maria. And it is making landfall in China as we speak. Don't forget, this imagery has a slight delay. The last image that you're looking at on your screen here is 21 minutes old. The previous image is 1 frame, so that's 2.5 minutes. And that's how far it moves every 2.5 minutes in the last hour or so. So if we did some math there, well, maybe another 5 or 10 minutes we could possibly call a landfall on this. Let's go back. Let's go back to the. Let's go back to the webcam. Look at this. Now this is the one that we were looking at earlier on the island, or the town on the island of Beigan, B-E-I-G-A-N. This is very close indeed to the center of the storm right now, and it's probably the worst of it being seen here.
Yeah, I've had to switch over to another computer, and I haven't got all the links open.
And that is pretty up to date as well. It's got a little timestamp up there at the top left. That's about a minute ago. And you can see how it's been looking.
So they're what, 2 hours? Well, that's definitely live.
This is current as the storm is passing very close to this area indeed. I would suggest, let me just have a little look on my screen that you're not able to see at the minute. It has passed, the eye has passed this area, and this particular location did not see the edge of the eye. It's going to have 100% eye wall.
And Nathan, you can definitely see how the sea is now over the foreshore, and I think those boats might be a little bit higher too. So are we going to see them?
I would suggest no, because I think that the highest water level will have been reached by now, and it will probably start to go down slowly, because of course the storm's making landfall, the water has nowhere to go, so you'll probably get a bit of rebound as well off the coast of the mainland of China back to this island. It's certainly going to be rough for the next few hours here.
Nathan, do we have any updated satellite imagery?
For Chris, did you say? I didn't catch your response.
For Chris.
Yeah. We did have it on just a moment ago, actually. There's nothing different to what we saw there. We will have at least another look at Chris before we finish up tonight. Again, here's another view of Maria making landfall as we speak, literally. And I expect confirmation of a landfall will occur very soon indeed. David, any further thoughts from what you're seeing on the webcam? Maybe he's left us briefly there. This is the view that we have. I'm just spending a moment or two distracted here whilst we see if we can ascertain whether or how close we are to a landfall right now.
You want me to? For now, for a couple minutes.
Pardon?
For a couple minutes, if you want me to.
To do what? Sorry.
Just update them and until you're finished.
Have you got something to show us?
Yeah. Actually, no. There was a comment saying that.
Go ahead.
What if? Hopefully, it's not. It's a little outrageous. One of the comments were saying, could we see? And the reason why is because it has my name in it. Another Matthew with Michael, or perhaps Kirk or Leslie reach Category 5 intensity. Your thoughts on that, Nathan?
It's like asking whether... Oh, I don't know. Trying to think of a silly analogy now. Just how silly it is. You know,
It is a very silly question.
Who knows what the answer is to that?
Chances of it happening...
I think we will get at least one significant Category 3 or 4 this year. I think Category 5 is not so likely, and although it is
another
possible,
Matthew, like no, just no.
Well, another Matthew is more likely than another Irma.
Yeah, they were saying like another Matthew with. But my name gets retired. No, I don't want a name to be on the record books as
well
one of the worst hurricanes that have killed many people. Like that's no, please no.
Again, we're looking at latest imagery from Taiwan, which significant amounts of rainfall has fallen, and on the radar,
and it's steady.
It continues to show strength. We're getting very close to be able to call a landfall or not. Well, it's very close. Look at that. Again, you can just about make out the island that we're looking at, Beigan. It's in one of those orange areas just south of the eye.
Let's see. I'm going to pull up satellite image.
So we're
just
basically just waiting for that call.
The remnants of Beryl, you can see it dumping significant rainfall on Cuba and the western side of northern.
Well, we are doing a poll as we continue with the stream tonight. If you're interested in voting, there's a few minutes left to do so. Do you think the World Meteorological Organization should break their convention, their usual convention of retiring storms per basin, and retire Maria across the whole world? 80%
Don't mind me.
Say yes. That is actually the highest for no. 20% for no. That's the highest so far, actually. But I was distracted there by the camera because it seems to have gotten much worse just now.
Nathan, I'm just looking at the
Very powerful
latest
waves.
on on Maria, 100 knots, and central pressure 948. So central pressure really hasn't dropped over the last, what, couple of hours?
They are in the process of updating that information, though. So we may get an update. I expect it won't have weakened very much.
And Hurricane Chris, 75 knots, 984 millibars.
You were talking about Chris there, were you?
Yeah, sorry, Chris, 984.
Yeah, well, that is old information. A recon plane found 980.
And whilst we're focusing on Typhoon Maria, we have 98E on the radar.
Indeed, 98E is a small system in the Eastern Pacific which has a 20% chance in the next 5 days as it moves out. It's not going to form.
1009 millibars, and then we've got 92W and 93W.
And they may become a feature later on. Certainly not going to be tonight.
No, so still waiting for updated information from the Joy Typhoon Warning Centre. That should be what, after we finish or this side?
I wouldn't hold out hope for getting information from the Joy Typhoon Warning Centre at the minute.
And I've stopped the 3-hourly update to the chart.
Here's the latest visible satellite imagery of the whole basin. Let's get a zoom in on Maria. That's how it looks right now. Most of Taiwan engulfed by it, or at least half of it. And the storm now moving in towards land. Landfall at any time. It doesn't make much of a difference, obviously. The conditions are still being felt, but I suppose it has a psychological effect. When the storm does make landfall, we know that the worst is technically over, that the storm can no longer maintain its intensity and weakening will ensue. But the minute that is not the case, and certainly won't be being felt here where this webcam is, where the waves continue to crash. Very difficult to see how strong the winds might be from this graphic, obviously from this image, but you can certainly see how rampant that rain is, torrential there.
How long would it take for the eye to go over this particular location where we're viewing the cam?
Well, the eye isn't going over there.
Well, this would be rain band, powerful rain band.
It's the eye wall. It's the eye wall right near the eye, indeed.
Do we expect to see confirmation of landfall in about 5 to 10 minutes?
Well, I don't know, because I mean, we're going to make our own judgment call here when it does make landfall, irrespective of whatever anyone else is saying. So I would just hold tight for that confirmation. If you've got any comments or questions for us whilst we're on the air, which may not be for a particularly long time after now, do start your message with Force 13 in the chat. Anthony Ramos did just that, saying that Michael said something about a tropical wave off the coast of Africa. You might want to reiterate that. If you're still around. Or am I talking to myself? I don't know.
here.
There was a
I'm just looking
suggestion.
at social media.
There was a
Sorry,
suggestion that a
attempt.
wave may form out of Africa, although I must say the National Hurricane Center doesn't have anything on that.
That's a long way away.
Are you looking long range?
Too long range.
I
About
see. False alarm. It's
Sure.
not going to happen. It may happen, just not anytime soon.
possibility, but it's very unlikely. That's definitely not gonna happen. Nothing's. No. No. No, I don't see anything too. Just a glitch in the website. It showed 996. I guess a glitch.
Very interesting.
Should we see Debbie, a name storm named Debbie, in the next 2 weeks? Yes, that's a possibility. but
Oh
it's-
goodness. Really?
it's
Well,
apparently,
yeah, suppose
it was one
so.
of the comments. No, I'm not saying anything. That was just based off a comment.
Oh, right. Again, we're still looking at imagery of Beigan in Taiwan.
GFS model. No, that's not. That's definitely not tropical. Let's see. 996. Okay, that's.
David, are you still with us?
Yeah, we could see Beryl form to a.
Beryl form again, indeed.
To 14th. 999. 999. First model's indicating that it's going to go, based on my guess, 400 Chris will be 400 miles north of England.
Oh
Miles.
no. Really?
That's just my estimate. If you want me to turn on the screen sharing, I could show you.
400. Well, interesting. Of course, we're monitoring several different systems here whilst we're on the air. And we're just waiting for the call that Maria may have made landfall.
Of course, we have a wave in the Eastern Pacific. 10% chance through 48 for the next 48 hours, and a 20% chance through the next 5 days. Ethan, your thoughts on that potentially forming?
Which one were the East Pacific one were you talking about there?
Eastern Pacific. It's a 20% chance in the next
No.
5 days, and
I don't
it's
see it.
not going to form.
I don't see it at all. A 20% chance isn't very much.
Yeah, we've had an explosion in June of those storms reach Category 5 intensity, or was it just Category 4?
This year, we've only had Category 4s this year.
But there was a lot in the first month, that's for sure.
And again, you're still seeing the serious conditions occurring in Taiwan. These are one of the islands. It's on one of the islands, and this one's called Beigan, just off the coast of China, which just saw the storm's eye not long ago. Maria is still a Category 3 storm, and now we have breaking news that Force 13 expects that Maria has made landfall near Lichuan in China. We believe that the storm has now made landfall on the coast of China at 50 minutes, or maybe even earlier than that actually. Well, you look at this imagery, you can see perhaps some evidence of that there as well. This imagery only goes up to 1/2 the hour, and we're now at 55 past the hour. And you can see that it appears that a landfall on the Chinese mainland has now occurred. David, your thoughts?
Just looking at what's on the screen, Nathan, I would support your position. It's the bulk of it is definitely on land. It's just those outer bands now to the east, but the eye's just about. Well, I might as well say it's on land because.
Yeah.
So, and Marie Terry was a Cat 5, but a Cat 3, Nathan, on landfall.
Category 3 at landfall, we're calling it here 115 miles per hour, a pressure of 948.
And looking back on the life of Maria, the eye feature was outstanding. It did close down to, I think it was 9, and it went back up to 30. I think there was a reduction from 30 to 20 to 9, but then it intensified again. And the environment overall was really good. It's one of the best systems that I've seen in the Westpac.
Crikey. Well, it's been a remarkable few days that we've been tracking Maria, and the updates that we've been giving hopefully have been of use to those in the path of the storm. Indeed, at first it looked like maybe it could have been a Philippine threat, then a Taiwanese threat, and well, that's what a lot of people over there thought. And in Japan, it looked, when it was reaching its peak intensity, as though maybe it would go for the mainland of Japan as a severe typhoon. That didn't quite materialize. It kept moving away. The models were trending west. At one point, one of the models was going for a landfall halfway along the coast of Taiwan, and eventually it had its mind set on the southernmost of the Ryukyu Islands of Japan, just off the northern tip of Taiwan. It has been forecast pretty well, hasn't it, David?
Yes, I've particularly note what the Joint Typhoon Warning Centre has put out, and I think the Philippines, the Pagasa, did come on board, but only very slightly.
Briefly, because it was only in their area for a short time, yes.
And Taiwan, well, their position was good, but I would have to lend support to the JTWC for the technical information. And Nathan, just looking at the webcam, I think conditions are easy.
Yes.
I think that wind has dropped.
Yes, indeed. David, Mike, thanks for joining me this evening. We are concluding our coverage here because the storm has made landfall. We've been here for 3 hours. I believe that we've done everything that we can do to the best of our ability. I don't think there is too much point in us remaining here. The storm is making landfall. It's still going to be dangerous for several more hours after the fact. But this is where we're at right now as we enter July the 11th here at Force 13 HQ. Typhoon Maria has made landfall in the last few minutes as a Category 3 typhoon near Lukyuan, which is just north of Fuzhou in China. I'm not sure how large that particular town is, but Category 3 conditions are certainly possible there. Hurricane Chris is intensifying off the coast of the Atlantic. We could see Category 2 by the 11 PM Eastern Daylight Time update. We're wrapping it up here. Thanks very much for joining us. My name is Nathan Foy. I was joined by David and Mike here, and several other people were with us as well, and we appreciate everything that everyone's done for us here, and we hope you'll join us again soon. But for now, that's us saying good night and good morning, and stay safe out there, especially under the gun of Typhoon Maria. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.